So we're going to get into some demonstration as well. But before we go forward, what I'd like to ask is if you could, just say who you are and just tell us, what would you like to get out of today? I can't promise that we'll give you what you want to see, but we'd really like to know what your current state is, what your interest level is, so we can speak to those things as we walk through our discussion.
All right.
And Robert, since I know you, I'm looking at you. Robert, by the way, is the CSP customer of ours, so thank you very much. And if you could give us a quick introduction.
Okay. My name is Robert Dorrance. I'm the Director of IT at Frederick Goldman. My primary responsibility is the service desk at my company. I have 4 locations, one in New Jersey, one in Mexico, one in India, and one in China. Mainly my cause for being here today is we're looking to go virtual desktop with our India and China users to shortcut them so they don't have to use VPN, go into our system, and be very slow. Currently, right now, we're using XenApp as our distribution for our ERP system, but there are concerns because of the latency from China and India. So,
thank you. Maybe we can go around this way.
Sure. I'm Rich Bunn, I'm the CIO of the Virtual Management Association. We have about 450 virtual desktops in Europe, Mexico, Canada, and the US. We're currently on a Windows 7 version. We're looking at a Windows 10 version, so this headline.
That's great. Thank you. And are you currently a customer of MDS? You work with us already?
We've done some work together in the past. It's been a while.
So some of this maybe we will review who we are and the team.
Sure, no worries.
My name is Michael Lim. I'm with the Population Council. We are transitioning into Office 365, looking into the Azure migration. I want to know more about the Windows 10 virtual desktop. Just here for an informational session so we know what's going on.
Oh, that's and you do. I know I've seen you before, and you work with us today. Right. Okay, great. Well, thank you for being here.
My name is Lulu. I work with Mike, the same company, and we haven't used anything about the VDI yet, and we're going to come here to learn some, and maybe we could apply to our company.
Great. Well, it's in preview, so Windows VDI is in preview, so you guys are the first to see it in the world. Okay, that's exaggerating.
Hi, everyone. George Uruchima. I am the IT manager for Allison, for a fashion company based out of the Meatpacking District. And, we have a few branch offices in the United States, and actually just opened one in Hong Kong. And kind of how you alluded to the latency over VPN connections, really what kind of brought me here. Started playing with Azure's VDI preview, and know that it's in preview, and hopefully by the end of the year it's going to be a final product. Really just trying to learn more to have the added value for Hong Kong users. Right now we're going through a very big expansion in Asia, and one of my biggest concerns is really the firewall when it comes to China and Azure, and understanding that there is a different instance of Azure in China that's actually not the same instance that's for the rest of the world. So really just trying to gather as much information as possible.
Do you use Azure today, by the way?
I am an Azure customer.
Oh, okay. And just out of curiosity, what do you use Azure for?
I really just started playing around with their file storage. And we have an instance, we have a server instance up there right now, and currently migrating some of our domain controllers on our ADF servers up to Azure, so no longer being dependent on if my New York location goes down, users can't authenticate, rather have that instances up in Azure. Yeah. So currently in the process of doing that right now.
Right. Yeah. So that's often the first step that we work with customers on. So great. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Oh, and not a customer, but.
Oh, not a customer. Not yet.
Not yet.
It's like Care Club for men.
Hello, everybody. My name is Jonas Germa. I'm from Wisdom Tree Asset Management Company. We worked with MDS in the past to migrate to 365. I think it's Darktrace, but I'm not sure if you guys were connected to that.
Trace? Yeah, I mean, we're a partner. But should we migrate to email or?
Email, yeah, we just did the portion of it. We have offices in Chicago, Canada, and Europe, and London. So this would be actually a good solution for us to integrate our domains together. We recently acquired the UK office, so we're completely isolated. So right now it's kind of annoying setting up a VPN just for them to come into our network and vice versa. So hopefully this will be a good solution.
Great, thank you. There's things we don't cover here, we can pick up on. So we only have one. Thank you. Mike,
my name is Jason Rivette. I work for Johnson Rose Companies. We are a green affordable housing developer and asset management. We're looking to deploy this to a lot of our properties, which are like in the Rust Belt and areas where there's limited connectivity or limited options for connectivity.
And you're all
We've engaged with MDS and on multiple projects.
Thank you.
Just integrate with us.
Hi, my name is Fred. I work for the Sovereign Wealth Fund for Singapore. So we headquartered in Singapore, but I'm an IT manager in the New York office. So currently we're using on-prem VMware Horizon for our VDI solution. So I'm here to check out the Azure VDI and see if this all is better.
Sorry. Hi. My name is Alex Lawrence. I'm from Bronx Care Hospital. So I'm the Chief Security Officer, and he's my colleague, Kishore. He manages the IT. We are here to look at migrating our traditional clinical workstations from the traditional desktop to the VDI or VDI infrastructure.
You use VDI today?
And so we are looking at both security and IT options and migrating to VDI and all of that.
And my main thing is like I just want to know how Microsoft Teams works in VDI actually. The calls and the video. I want to understand how it works. Okay. The video.
And do you use Azure today, or what's your exposure?
So we are a full in-house data center. We don't have any cloud services. Because most of our clinical applications like Hospitals, GE, they have their own services, and we are just using the cloud services. SaaS. Yes, SaaS or host solutions. Yes.
My name is Martin Gupta. Infrastructure team. Jason. I'm Azure and senior consultant for MDS, and I'm gonna run a couple of demos for you guys today.
Jason Polche, infrastructure lead, Mori Data Systems. So yeah, I'm going to be delivering the technical presentation. We have plenty of slides. I really want to make sure you guys all just understand this, right? So if we keep questions, conversations, solutions, discussions, feel free to jump in, ask questions as often as you'd like. Again, I mean, there might be some content you've seen here before that you're using already. But the idea is to give you an overview of Azure, what it offers, some migration strategies, and then get into the demos with Azure Migrate, Azure Site Recovery, and Windows 10 VDI specifically, which I know a lot of you guys are here for.
So if you want to click to the next thing. So, I know you guys work with us already. I won't go too much into this. We're going to talk about our CSP practice. If you could raise your hand, if you could tell us you use CSP today. CSP. Okay, so the rest of you folks you buy traditional licensing for Microsoft, correct? Right. So we'll talk about CSP, what that is, and what the benefits of using our CSP platform. One thing that's different from us, we're not just a born in the cloud only organization. So we have to where you've heard some of the folks here, we've assisted them with migration, integration to 365, integrating with other external services. We have a SharePoint practice. I think I heard someone talking about food, wanting to learn more about food. Jason's team also does voice implementation. So much more than just hosting email and services in the cloud. We also have Ash back there. Ash Marcos is our security practice director. So we do a lot of risk assessment work and helping customers meet regulatory compliance. I heard a lot of organizations are global. I'm sure with GDPR and other requirements. So that's the first of the problem before the technical problem, and we have that expertise. And of course, we're here to talk today about a cloud infrastructure. So we see customers all over the spectrum, from fully in the cloud to just dabbling. And the big guys, the big things like the big banks and so on, they're the ones moving slow. The smaller organizations that I think are more nimble. A couple of things to talk about here. So we're not just a Microsoft partner. We do have relationships with Cisco, Veeam, Citrix, Rare, and I think that's a big value to us. We don't have to be here to evangelize, to the depth of Microsoft. We can be candid, and in fact, Microsoft will bring us in to keep them honest. So if you're on our CSP service, it's basically you pay for only what you use. So I think, Robert, I think it was you were having a conversation. I said you were interested in the voice part, the PBX. And I said, let's just buy a free license for $2. I think so.
No, I didn't buy the license.
So you said yes.
But I know that you gave me that option.
Yeah. If you could try it out, use it, and then say, you know what, this just doesn't work for us. So I can mix and match licenses.
But
And I would say let's explore that as you have questions about it. It's not like we're not going to be building out a whole new, enterprise platform, but we can assist you with technical questions. How do I do this? How do I integrate this? So please check that out if you have a question. But again, that's only if you're a CSP customer. Also, if you're on our CSP platform, you have the advantage of working with our other packages. So if something goes beyond a simple question and a bigger integration question. Microsoft has incentives to qualified customers, so they'll actually provide funding to do a proof of concept. So I can't guarantee in all cases Microsoft will look at you as an organization and say, yes, they qualify. So if you have an enterprise agreement, it typically depends on size and if you're managed, that kind of thing. But please talk to us about that if you're interested. And we can do things like, there's a lot you could do, but where people often begin is, we'll begin with could you go back here? We begin with an economic assessment. There's a lot you can do with the cloud. It's not a product, it's an ecosystem. What's your priority? What is it? Do you have storage-related issues? Do you have site-related issues? Are you looking to be more nimble? It kind of depends. Do you have a new product that you want to make available, et cetera? We can go on a lot. So yeah, if you want to, sorry.
Yeah, no, I'll add to that a little bit, right? So, I mean, assessing your environment is absolutely important to know what's meant for the cloud, how much it's going to cost, so you can estimate spend and whatnot, but also optimizing that once it's in the cloud, which is another big benefit of CSP. So once you're up in the cloud, making sure your VMs are the right size, making sure you can take advantage of all the services that are up there, platform services, software services, serverless, right? So it's not just about lift and shift, it's about lift and shift and then next steps and what are those next steps. And that's where CSP comes in. We're your trusted advisor and we can help you on that cloud journey. So.
That's also a lot of my CSP customers don't have reserved images, right? They're just buying specific images and we'll say, you know what, you're automatically spending X amount per month. It makes more sense to purchase a reserved image, and that will effectively make your cost less. This is Microsoft is telling you that's something why we have a DSP provider who gives you that access.
And actually, I think Microsoft wants you to smartly use. Really no, because you don't want to be hit with a bang bill. Oh my God, what's this? I didn't sign it. They want you to use it smartly because then you'll think of other applications to use it for.
So when it like owning Microsoft server licenses.
So the biggest cost savings is the hybrid benefit use, right? Where you could save, I mean, it's like 70% of that VM cost just by owning software assurance on licenses, right? So
I think for me, while I was looking into that is I have a certain amount of physical servers with a certain amount of cores.
Yep.
At what point what's the threshold where they'll say, all right, you can't. What's the benefit? What's the threshold of the benefit, right?
Yeah, and so that's like a cost analysis type exercise, right? And we can go through that, and then in the technical slide deck, we'll go into migration strategies, assessment strategies, and yeah, exactly how to figure out those things.
Because also, if you just look and say, okay, I have this today on-prem. I want to take this and move it to the cloud. What's the cost benefit? I don't know. I mean, let's talk about what you're doing. That's I think, where you have the opportunity to maybe do some engineering and to be a little smart about how you're optimizing your enterprise.
I laugh because you do the initial cost calculator and you try to do a one-to-one. You initially have sticker shock and you're like, oh, I'm not doing that. And then once you take into account of, oh, let me do a 1 year, 2 year, 3 year reservation. Oh, wait a minute, let me see how many licenses that I own can go into that. And actually the cost goes down significantly. But I think it's just more educating the users, right?
Yeah, and then taking it also into account like power. People are doing like, oh, I just have to buy the server. Well, you have to power the server. You have to cool the server. You have to manage that server. Someone's got to pay the rest.
Yeah.
Right? So all those things come into play. Cost associated. Yeah, absolutely.
The human cost.
Yeah.
Depending on what that. So I won't go too much into this. It's like an eye chart, but it's support. If you're a CSP customer, you get free technical support. We can talk about it if you're interested. I know Robin has been really taking advantage of it because it's been running so smoothly. It's like the Maytag repair. We do a few things that I'll talk about briefly. And I'm not going to read the whole bullet points, but we do all the bullet points: the incident management, advanced insights, and optimization. So if you want to click on, I'll just take so just some alert management, helping prioritize as things come up. Even though you're in the cloud, it's not like this still has to be managed, this still has to be maintained. You're the administrator. We're just providing the platform. This one's a lot. This just provides who has access, some monthly reporting activities, who's doing what, changes, add change leads. And I think this is the big thing. So we have tools that, some of it's custom tools and Microsoft tools, how to optimize, how to get the most out of what I'm using today. Any questions on these? So a lot of, where do customers begin? We see a lot with disaster recovery, and that's a big term, right? It's like backups. What does that mean? But when you're looking at you have a data center and you're looking to, what's the contract on that company? Now you have options. And I think that's a good place where people begin. Data center moves, even organizations that moved. I think one of the organizations we worked with, they moved, and they moved everything into Azure, their infrastructure, and then they said, why do we have stuff on site? You know, it just works so well. It's an opportunity. Microsoft is very motivated to help you migrate SQL to Azure because it's going end of life, SQL on premises. So we'll talk about that if you have questions. Hybrid cloud, it's a big term. I think Jason's going to dive into that. But you know, no one is like rushing to put everything under the sun. It's usually what's priority, what's going to be best for us. So Windows VDI is still in preview. We're going to talk about it. And again, I would say it's, you know, where do we begin? Let's begin with the cloud assessment. We should make no assumptions about your business, your priorities, the obstacles, and the benefits. So we can't be informed unless we begin. Before Jason gets up, any questions on that or who we are? How big is your team? So that was actually the first slide. So we're about 70 full-time employees. We work with other organizations that we are like a consortium of organizations, and we do hire as per need. But the projects that I'm working on, they're full-time employees. We're based in New York. We have offices around the country. We're actually just a few blocks over. Yeah. All right, well, thanks, and please, I guess Jason's going to get up and dive a little bit more technical before we get into demo.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Average customer, years, typically keep a very close relationship with people.
Yeah, so I mean, so this is a kind of elaborating on that, right? So here are some of our Microsoft competencies. We have a ton of gold competencies, some silver. We've been the U.S. Metro Partner of the Year for the SMB space for 3 straight years. We were the Cloud Partner of the Year, and we've won some customer-facing or partner-facing awards from our customers. So Lockheed Martin designated us their Partner of the Year, and Ingram Micro is a big distributor. We had the largest growth out of all their partners in the Americas, right? 15. So yeah, we're only 70 people, but we are growing. I think we had about 35 or 40% growth last year. We're anticipating that for like about 50 this year. So we have quite aggressive growth. I work for Microsoft Consult, big organization. We can move. We're agile. We can change gears, bring the resources. We're local. It would take Microsoft Consulting like 2 months to write a scope of work. Actually deliver a presentation that you can talk to. So big difference. So cloud migration, right? We've been hearing about cloud for the past decade. It feels like, right? So it's like been ingrained into our brains, but it's still growing, surprisingly or not surprisingly. So there's a projected 27.5%, 28% cloud growth in just infrastructure services. So infrastructure services, VMs or IaaS type operations, so a lift and shift approach, moving a VM from your organization on premise to the cloud. And then the second fastest growing segment of cloud is platform services. So again, that comes into the optimization of those applications once they're up in the cloud. So first step, lift and shift up to the cloud. Second step, optimize that cloud and leverage some of those cloud-specific services like platform services, serverless services to lower your costs and lower your management. So 2 important things, right? Gartner's projecting through 2022 that the growth of cloud is going to outpace the growth of overall IT by 3 times. So pretty significant. And Azure PaaS services, so platform services like we just talked about, reduce management of your applications by up to 80%. So for those of you guys not familiar with PaaS services, I don't know if you guys or anyone who's using them. SQL is a good instance, right? So taking that SQL server and taking the application and moving it to Azure without the underlying virtual machine. You don't have to manage that SQL cluster. You don't have to manage operating system updates, SQL updates. Everything's handled for you by Microsoft. It saves a whole ton of time, and it actually saves money on the Azure spend. So.
You gotta convince your DBAs to.
Oh yeah, true. So there is some feature parity that's lacking. I mean, features come and go pretty much every day. A lot of the stuff we're talking about today is in preview. But yeah, the cloud there's new features coming out literally by the hour.
And Mike, you said that they're end-of-lifing SQL.
I think it's.
SQL Server.
Is it? What is it?
So there is a deadline coming up in July 14th. Dave.
Yeah.
That's SQL Server.
SQL Server.
Yeah, it's 2008.
We have a 2008.
Yeah.
But Microsoft is they're trying to give early warning, so please.
Yeah.
And they're trying to motivate you to make it, so there's funding sometimes that we could get to help you to make that migration. Yeah. So definitely let's talk about that more.
One thing to be clear is you're definitely going to charge you more for cloud for license. Or if that's on-prem versus in there.
Yeah, but they're going to continue to update the software through 2018, and then they'll maintain the security and all that.
Yes. Yep.
And we do have a lot of collateral in the back too that has that information and a lot of resources on our website specifically around the upcoming deadlines.
So what I found interesting too on the right-hand side of the screen, the top initiative in cloud is not getting to the cloud. So that has kind of passed, right? People are still migrating to the cloud, obviously, but it's not the top goal. The top goal is to optimize those workloads that are already in the cloud. So not just sending stuff up to the cloud, because if you use the Azure calculator, like you mentioned, there's going to be sticker shock. It's getting that stuff up to the cloud, optimizing it. Again, circling back to our CSP services, that's something we can absolutely help. So where Azure really wins is their hybrid cloud approach, right? So hybrid cloud can mean multiple things. It can mean hybrid cloud from the networking side. It can also be from the management side. So common identity platform, right? So I'm assuming everyone here is running on Azure Active Directory for their identity platform. So Azure Active Directory seamlessly integrates those on-premise users with the cloud, single platform for management. Infrastructure services, platform services, VDI, so unified platform in the cloud with the Azure Stack. This is really big in the government space. It's really not big in the private or the commercial space. So Azure Stack is basically like a private data center instance of Azure that you can run on premise. The biggest use case for that is if your data cannot reside in the cloud based on some compliance that you need physical access to it at all times. And again, that usually comes into play with government, but then using Azure as a management platform for both your on-premise and your cloud presence. Data platform, so we talked about SQL platform services before. So using that, the platform services to integrate your on-premise workloads with your cloud workloads. And then security. So, Ash is here. If you guys have any security questions, he'll be more than happy to answer those. But having that unified security approach and management to both on-premise users and cloud users is very important. It minimizes the tool set and the overlapping policies and all that overhead that comes with security. So one of the biggest concerns we get when moving into the cloud, right, is compliance. Or is my data secure? So here's a list of all the compliances that Azure meets. There's a lot of them up there. I'm not going to go through all of them. But the point being, your information in Azure is most likely way more secure than it is in your on-premise data center. From a physical access standpoint to an encryption standpoint, they meet pretty much every level of compliance that's necessary for all the different verticals. If you need specific use cases, we could obviously dive down into these in a side conversation. But again, compliance is very key. Microsoft takes security very seriously, and this is just an example of that. So Azure Active Directory at the control plane. So I know this was mentioned earlier, and Mike brought it up. One of the first things we recommend is getting a hybrid identity in place when moving to the cloud, right? So making sure the policies of your on-premise users and your cloud users are synchronized, and more importantly, that you can manage them seamlessly from a single platform. Pretty straightforward. Things like multi-factor, privileged identity management, conditional access, right, gives you that added security, which you probably don't have today with your on-premise infrastructure unless you're using some kind of third-party service. Any questions?
Yeah, that's pretty key. That's often where we begin with, not so much it's where we begin with companies that are using Exchange, migrating to 365. That's a place where we begin, that you're really abstracting identity to the cloud to give it the ease of management, the ease of access, the self-service, all of that benefit. If you're not there, we do a lot of work with customers doing the discovery and helping you with the plan to get there. It just changes the way you do business.
So why are people migrating to the cloud, right? It's probably not just, I want to save money, right, like we talked about before. You can save money, but it's got to be thought out, it's got to be planned. So one of the biggest catalysts we see is your data center is up for renewal, whether it's a hardware refresh or if the contract needs to be renewed, you're in a co-location, you're moving offices. That's really a time when people start to think about, I should be looking at the cloud, I should have a cloud presence, this will make my office move or my moving this data center easier, right? So that's one of the most common catalysts we see for cloud migrations. Compliance, so we showed that compliance slide earlier, right? Making sure that you meet specific levels of the compliance from an encryption and a security policy standpoint. It's a lot harder to do if you manage your own infrastructure. There's a lot of pieces that have to be taken into account, and it's done for you if you move to the Azure platform. Scalability needs, right? I don't know if anyone here has a development team or is it DevOps, right? The ability to scale up and scale down quickly. We all know purchasing hardware, deploying hardware, configuring hardware, refreshing hardware is a very time-consuming and expensive process. The cloud makes that very easy, very repeatable for people who are in application development and have that need. And then software end of support, which was mentioned, right? So SQL is going end of support. Windows Server 2008 R2, I think, is going end of support. You get added support benefits by migrating those workloads to the cloud. They extend those deadlines for you, making it easier for you to migrate to a supported OS version. So pretty straightforward. So our Azure migration mission, right? Moving from the on-premise data center to the cloud, we always want to start with an assessment. Azure has its own assessment tool called Azure Migrate. I'm not sure if any of you guys are familiar with it. It's a free tool. It's come a long way. I think they're on like their third iteration at this point. So it integrates with VMware today. It's in preview for Hyper-V, which is probably going to go general any day now, if I had to guess, because it does work. But it is technically still in preview. So assessing that environment, seeing what you have, coming up with a game plan on how to get to the cloud and what to consume once you're in the cloud. That's also from a networking standpoint, right? So one of the biggest things when you move to the cloud, you have latency. There's no way around latency, right? So latency is just a function of physics. It's how long it takes to get from point A to point B. But what you can do is optimize that connection through the TCP handshaking, through the application acceleration, through throwing more bandwidth at the application, right? And that can be done in many ways. So there's ExpressRoute, which is like a managed MPLS type connectivity that Microsoft provides. It can also be purchased or delivered through your service provider that you have existing today if you're an MPLS customer. There's software-defined WAN, which is really picking up steam, right? So that's taking internet connections, MPLS connections, basically LTE connections, anything you can really think of, and encapsulating that into a single connection and optimizing the traffic flow over those connections. So it gives you redundancy, visibility, added security, and increased performance. So something to think about when you're moving to the cloud, right? Making sure that those applications still run the same way that they do on-premise, because that's a big thing when you incorporate that latency. And then the migration piece. So Azure has a tool we'll demo today called Azure Site Recovery. That really does replication from point A to point B, point A on-premise, point B, the Azure cloud. It's a pretty easy to use, very, I want to say simple tool. It works. We have a nice demo on it today, so I hope for those of you that haven't seen it, you guys get some value out of that. There's also third-party tools. Zerto is another big partner of ours. Zerto does cloud migrations. They also do data center to data center migrations. There's River Meadow. There's a bunch of other companies out there that actually will migrate and re-platform the app at the same time. So again, we're really vendor agnostic when it comes to these migration and assessment tools. Microsoft has some free options, but there's also a whole slew of ISVs that we partner with for these services. And then the optimization services, and that's where the CSP comes in, right? We can help you tune those workloads and optimize that cloud spend so it doesn't get out of control, because it can balloon very fast. And you want to make sure that, again, you have a plan and a way to mitigate those costs moving forward. So again, some cloud migration strategies. We talked about a few of these earlier. So lift and shift, that's the simplest approach. Taking a VM from your on-prem, putting it in the Azure infrastructure services. You're generally not going to see much cost benefit there unless you use the reserved instances and the cloud hybrid benefit licensing feature we talked about. Right, that's really where people, quote unquote, get their feet wet coming into the cloud. Right, it's the lift and shift to the rehosting. And then there's refactoring, so using the containers, using the platform services to get more management capabilities out of those applications as they move to the cloud. And then as you shift further right, when you get more mature in the cloud, right, so re-architecting these apps and rebuilding them into a serverless model. I don't know if anyone here is running any kind of serverless stuff today, but it really saves a lot of money, and it makes repeatable processes a lot smoother once you have that CI/CD developed.
And that's far down. I mean, we're talking a lot of nuts and bolts here, but where organizations are using Azure and other services, maybe you are today too, to really re-engineer how they do their business, and you can fail fast. So if it's not like I have to buy a whole ton of gear. I can work on projects. Pay for what I use, and it's only when I hit that compute button. When I hit compute, that's when the meter starts running. So it's a big difference, and we're not going to get so much into that today. But is anyone using cloud services to do that kind of application work? What kind of stuff are you doing?
We have a tool that compares a bunch of funds and kind of suggests to you like what would be a better buy if you're a portfolio manager. So we developed that tool in-house, and we use a lot of that.
And what is it? What's behind it? Is it artificial intelligence, or what's?
IBM Watson is a little bit incorporated into it, but then there's other parts of dev teams developed the tool specifically for our users to attract other advisors. So more so for that. Not exactly sure what's under the hood. I'm more on the system engineering side.
Right.
We have a team for that.
But you looked at Bloomberg and other kind of.
Yeah, we're getting away from that because we're essentially building our own database service request. So I think we're almost to a point where we won't need Bloomberg anymore.
Interesting.
Yeah, pretty much building our own database.
Bloomberg.
Hopefully,
That's what they did to Standard & Poor's. So
yeah.
It's not like it has to be done.
It's true.
So interesting. Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone else doing that kind of? Because that's way at the other end of the food chain. You guys are really being very innovative. But anyhow, thank you. Sorry.
No, that's good. Yeah, so we mentioned some added support benefits moving to the cloud, right? So end of life on SQL Server 2008 and Windows Server 2008. So you get extended support benefits moving to the cloud, right? Pretty straightforward. Any questions, we can guide you.
And I think Microsoft's going to make it painful, is what it is. So
yeah.
That's usually the case. Yeah. Plan in advance of what it says.
And something cloud resiliency, right? So we can't avoid failures from taking place, right? So hardware is going to fail. It's just a matter of when it fails and how you respond to that failure. So leveraging the Azure cloud, it's not as simple as just moving that application to the cloud. When it's moved to the cloud, it's got to be designed appropriately and incorporate disaster recovery and backup just as if it lived on premise, right? So using high availability techniques, disaster recovery, and backup, which we have a demo on pretty much all three of these things coming up very shortly. And just to elaborate on that a little bit more, Azure uses a construct called availability sets to give some sort of redundant protection within a single data center. So if you have a single application that spans multiple virtual machines, you want to make sure that those virtual machines are in an availability set, right, to make sure that if a single switch or server or power supply in the data center fails, only a portion of those VMs would fail. So the thought being when you deploy VMs and they're on an availability set, Azure does their checks and balances and make sure that you don't have any overlap in any of those core infrastructure components. Then they have Azure regions, right? So a region encompasses multiple data centers throughout multiple buildings. They call them zones or availability zones within Azure. And then making sure that your applications are spread across availability zones in case a single building goes down, which is highly unlikely, but it's possible. And then there's Azure region protection, right? So, you know, let's say the Azure East region gets hit with a data center or a fire or some kind of natural disaster, and that whole data center, all those data centers in that region go offline, making sure you have Azure Site Recovery, some other kind of backup or replication strategy in place, making sure your data is protected in another region that's still accessible. So while we haven't seen any regions go down from like a natural disaster, we have definitely seen regions go down due to DNS updates or, you know, lack of DNS updates, if you want to call them. A couple weeks back, I can remember it was a big Azure going down, right? So these are not completely, you know, tolerant to going down. There is going to be some sort of failure that happens. It's make sure you're prepared for those failures when they happen. Make sense?
I think from what I noticed when just playing around with playing with data sets and regions, the only one little thing I've noticed, and I don't know if maybe I was not configuring it properly, but if I was spinning up a VM, mechanical drives and solid state drives, the availability of solid state drives disappears.
Really?
When you try to have it across different data centers or regions, SSDs are only available locally for that data set.
That might be, so I know there's a couple different redundancies, there's like LRS, DRS, right? I'll have to look into that. I thought you can do...
You're talking about the manager?
Yeah.
So you don't have the option to manage it?
So he's saying when he does manage this...
Well, were you crossing into China?
No. Well, yeah, I was gonna... Depends on what regions. Only certain regions are supported too for that, but like using like geo-redundant storage, like GRS for...
Yeah.
SSD should be supported in there.
Yeah, the managed disk basically Microsoft takes care of it. You don't have to do it.
We can take that off. We can look into that, yeah.
I was just curious. I noticed that when I was just spinning up in different regions.
To add to this point, we recently had to turn off our recovery option because it was hitting the throughput of the hard drive so much that I couldn't sync my drive.
For Azure Site Recovery?
Yeah. So that was the one bad part I did.
Yeah, so part of like, yeah, the way that the managed disks work, right, I mean, I'm sure you're familiar, right? So depending on the size, the more storage you have, the more apps that you get, and then there's the SSDs, there's SSD premium now, I think. Yeah. But there is like a hard limit of IOPS. Yeah. So if you have your disk size to like how much data you're using, you might hit that limit way sooner if you're extensive on the read-writes.
Yeah.
But we can help you.
Yeah, now they have the Ultra. They just added the Ultra.
Yeah, Ultra SSDs are out there, which have much higher throughput. So it might just be moving storage. So you know, to add on to those, you know, the resiliency solutions, Azure Backup, which we're going to be demoing next, and then Azure Site Recovery, which is a replication. So both are application consistent, right? So they just don't replicate the data. They make sure the application's consistent when it writes the data to the replicated region so that when you spin up the app, it actually works. So any questions on that? Because I think we're moving into the demo phase just to break up the slides a little bit.
And actually, before we go to demo, I'd like to, would be good to take a quick, like just a 5-minute break to, address whatever requirements.
Yeah.
I could let you know there's a coffee machine if anyone wants to follow me. And this is all, it's kind of like a square. You'll find a bathroom down at this end of the corridor, but if you keep walking in circles, you're going to find it. So anyone that wants coffee, please follow me. There's a coffee machine. And maybe we can resume in just like 5 minutes.
Okay. Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
I had a, oh no, it's my breakfast. I didn't.
Yeah, I was,
It's like
I mean,
I can give a lot of stuff. How hard obviously things such as like their next step.
Yes. It's all area eventually. From Pakistan, I think first tomorrow I'll try to get whether it's coming out so I'll tell you. No. This solution and what's the blueprint for this solution? We can through that and you know what I mean? So it's like Jason painted the first picture. They don't talk about it as far as this is not I didn't take the wheel on this, so I like it as right about this is all. Yeah, you can work with the partner. I'm really far back to everything. There's instances speaking about like all that cost saving. This thing is great. So this is for you to know we're going to have this thing.
The latency is killing you. Yeah, it was horrible. It was so bad because I have another dependency, and I'm like, why is this failing? I just wasn't writing to disk, and we were syncing whatever's on prem, and that wasn't syncing, and that's how file service. And it's difficult to try to convince people, we can't, restore any file that we do not want to, But we're in the middle of migrating from Linux to Windows anyway, so hoping once that's complete, it might be better. DFS, ran into a bunch of DFS issues. Yeah, and it's like whole software based.
Please killing me right now.
Definitely gives you a lot more flexibility. Yeah, file service here in one of our in one of our branch offices has DFS. Yeah. On site. Yeah, but you would. Then we integrated our mailbox. Yeah. And how much more?
We're gonna jump into our Azure Site Recovery.
Yeah, and just before we start, what I would say is, first of all, thanks again for being here. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, let them eat.
I think one of the key takeaways is, if you have questions, you have to have them talk to you. We begin with assessments. We can determine if you have access to, sometimes we get funding to assist. But we're going to switch gears here. Does anyone have any questions before we dive in? You good?
Any questions on the webinar?
And by the way, we apologize for some people are too loud and some people are too quiet. I don't know. They probably sound too quiet. That's true. So anyway, we're going to turn it over to Hani, and Hani's going to walk through some demos. And please, let's make them interactive. This is for you. Hopefully, you get a lot of benefit out of it.
Okay, so we're gonna show the Azure Migrate and the Azure Site Recovery. I have the Hyper-V server here. Since talking about Windows 10 experience, I'm using the 2019 server for everything. This is Data Center 2019. It's a Hyper-V server, and I'm running basically 3 VMs on it: server 1, 2, and 3. And I downloaded the Azure Migrate virtual machine and put it in the.
Sorry, you on the Teams. If you want to just share your screen to the left.
Share your screen. Yeah.
Okay, can you guys see that?
No. Yeah. Yeah, you have to reshare. That. And then whichever side. Yep, not right.
All right. Okay, so we have the Hyper-V, the 2019 server, and we have the 3 VMs on it, and we have the Azure Migrate, which is it's basically a virtual machine that they downloaded from Azure. When you set up the Azure Migrate, you can download a VHD and just like add it to your Hyper-V. It's still in preview, but I want to show it to you guys. So the Azure Migrate, when you run the Azure Migrate, it's just a normal Windows server. I'm going to connect to it. And it has the Azure Migrate web portal that you just log into it, and basically you link your Azure subscription and Recovery Vault to it. Just wait for it. So once you do that,
just for a little, can you just recap right now? What are you showing right now?
Yeah, this is the Azure Migrate portal.
Azure Migrate portal.
Yeah. So that's the Azure Migrate portal. So basically, I'm showing them how the Hyper-V is linked to Azure. It's through this Azure Migrate VM. It's basically reading all your VMs on the Hyper-V, and you can actually go inside. You can see what's going on. So, so you can actually see that you have a discovery agent, assessment agent, and a management app running at the same time. If I go inside the other side, once you actually download and run the Azure Migrate and link it to your Azure subscription, that's it. You don't have to do anything on this side. All you have to do is go to the Azure Migrate and you can actually see that all your VMs are going to show on the Azure Migrate under discovered items. You can see server 1, 2, and 3, and you can also create a new assessment to basically let Microsoft tell you. Microsoft goes into the history of those VMs and basically to see the usage, the CPU, the RAM, and gives you some kind of an assessment. How much are they going to cost you to run on Azure? So let's say I'm going to create a new assessment here. And then I'm going to say new assessment. And I'm basically going to also only check server 1, 2, and 3, since I don't really care about the Azure Migrate. And I'm going to hit create assessment. Okay, so this assessment is going to be created. It's going to take some time, so I'm going to go to the Azure site recovery, and then maybe we come back and check the assessment.
Quick question. Is this for VMware too, or just?
Yeah, actually, it works better on VMware. It looks exactly the same.
Okay.
It's basically a virtual appliance that you download and you load into your ESXi. It requires a vCenter though.
Okay.
You have to have a vCenter. And then you basically log into the machine, and you're going to see a very similar interface. Very similar interface. All you have to do is like connect the appliance, connect it to the Hyper-V and your Azure subscription and Recovery Vault.
And then you can use this physical service as well with like an agent?
Yes. Yeah. No, the Migrate? Yeah.
Yeah. Still on preview.
No, there is no physical because the physical server is going to be only one piece of machine. But you want to use it.
Right, but could you, we have a few physical machines that are out there. We're not 100% virtualized, so we would prefer adding, if it could evaluate that physical machine to go into the cloud as well.
So I think it's on the roadmap. I don't think it's supported today, but there's also third-party tools like I mentioned, like there's Movera, there's Cloudomize, Turbonomics. I mean, there's a whole slew of them that we use. And back to Mike's point earlier, we can generally get funding for these types of assessments, depending on specific, requirements and whatnot. But those tools can be used as well for physical workloads, virtual workloads.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. See, Microsoft want to make it easy for you to assess a bunch of servers. So if you have 20, 25, 30 servers, if you have one server, it's easier for you to actually, assess it yourself or use a different tool.
Quick question, just to recap. Sorry, but I just want to slow it down for a second. So this tool that you just showed now and the one you just did, this would be for someone in this room that's looking to improve their servers and potentially see what the cost would be on Azure, or I just want to make sure everything.
Yeah. So basically, it's going to run an assessment. It's going to look into the history of those machines and get the average. And let's say you have a VM that runs on 4, virtual CPUs, and you only need 2. It's going to tell you only need 2. You don't have to run 4 CPUs on Azure to do it. Also, let's say you have 16 gig of RAM. They can tell you, all you need is just 4 gig. You don't have to buy a 16 gig Azure VM because it's going to cost a lot less.
So that's key, right? So most customers, like you said before, it's like to this tool will go in, look at your past history, and instead of having Nutanix come in and try to upgrade you and Cisco,
it's not as simple as like Connie said, you're using 4 CPUs, 4 gigs of RAM. Let's just use the virtual machine in the cloud that's 4 CPUs, 4 gigs of RAM. So actually go in and see what the machine's using. It doesn't really care what it's provisioned to use. It's going to see what it's actually using and make suggestions based on that, right? So you're not provisioning just for the sake.
Anomaly use. So if you have spikes.
Yeah, it takes all those into account. It also takes in so you can see the little view dependencies.
Yeah, this is a very cool, you can actually view the dependencies. So let's say you have right now I don't have any dependencies, each machine is independent from the other, but you can log into every machine and see if it needs another server, maybe it's a database server or, an app server or, middle tier. it actually links all of them, and you can actually see all the dependencies between machines. Really pretty cool. And it's pretty easy. You download it, you run the Azure Migrate, you create an assessment, you wait for it, Microsoft collects all the information, and it tells you how much it's going to cost you to do it. Like, I'm going to go back and check Azure Migrate.
Those dependencies are really important too when you're migrating like a bigger application, right? To make sure you don't migrate half of an application's VMs, so half are on-premise, half are in the cloud. So that's really where those dependencies come into play. It lets you know what apps talk to what, how often they talk to them, and then let you create that migration.
Yeah, sometimes you have like a lot of bunch of machines, a lot of machines, and you might actually maybe miss one of the doesn't show. And then you can go back to the dependency and you can actually see that one of the machines are missing. So I'm going to go into the recovery vault. And I want to talk about the Azure site recovery. So the same server actually, what is that?
Forget a machine. CIO would fire me.
Yeah, so the same server that I'm running the Azure Migrate, I'm also running the Azure Site Recovery. And since this is a Hyper-V server, all you need to do is download the piece of software. And also, you need like the key from the your vault, recovery vault, to be able to connect it. Once that happens, here is how it shows on Azure. So let's go back to the Hyper-V.
And just to read it, so Azure Site Recovery, right, can do twofold, right? So it's a migration tool from on-prem to Azure or from Azure to Azure, or it's a disaster recovery tool where it just does replication from on-prem to Azure, so you can use Azure as a DR, or you could do Azure to another Azure region for DR, and ASR does both.
And also physical servers.
Yeah, physical servers, VMware, Hyper-V, it does.
So I had just as a tidbit of pickup. I had a customer with 20 physical servers who was dying to get off those physical servers, and he did a whole project of ASR. The scenario, have that up and running with live fire after you fell over. We have to call physical servers.
Thanks.
Everyone in the team has one or two physical servers in around,
Yeah, and the Azure Site Recovery is actually free for the first month or two. So you don't really need to pay for any tools to move your stuff. Also, the nice thing about it is, it's really not a compute. So when you do the DR, you're not really running real servers. It's basically, it copies all the data and put them in a storage account. Only when you need them, then you just fail over, and then Azure creates all these VMs for you. So you don't have to pay for all the compute. If you have a physical data recovery, you actually have to run all these servers.
Yeah, but having two data centers, right, one just sitting in standby can be very cost prohibitive, where Azure Site Recovery, again, you pay for the monthly license, which I think is about $25, and then the storage, which is really pennies on the dollar compared to the compute. So it's a very inexpensive way to run disaster recovery, and more importantly, it works. So.
Yeah, and it integrates really seamless with Hyper-V. Like for example, the server one. If I go here to see the replication, you can actually see it's just like as if you're replicating this server to another Hyper-V. It's basically the same. You can actually view the health. It replicates every 5 minutes. And you don't have to do anything. Microsoft does that. They take care of the storage for you. If I go back to the recovery vault, you can actually, I can go down to the protected items and I can see the replicated items here. So you can see that it says server 1 is protected and server 2 is already protected. So that means we already have a full copy of those two servers up to date on Azure. So if anything happened to that site, all you have to do is, do a failover. If you click on those three, you're going to see that one of the options is a failover. You can actually do a planned failover or a test failover. Just check it.
It's just a quick stop there, and then to the very fast. But is anyone here in the group who have requirements for failover testing?
By compliance, yeah.
Compliance, and probably say like, part of your overall policies, certain policies that have other customers do a full migration, make that process from the weekend process, where the payroll weekend, actually physically do the failover, and actually feel that, which was the whole weekend, time out, evening, to what she's showing you now. And that's only really kind of stop you, but to show you how simple it is to failover.
Yeah, you can actually, once we test if you test the failover, it's actually going to create a VM for you, and you can actually log into that VM and make sure everything is working.
Does it also create, so let's say, for example, you're creating this test environment. Does it create the network for you as well? Or
yeah, you basically, what you do is you have to point it to the VM. If you're going to do this, when you started any Azure site recovery, you have to tell each machine is going to fail over to, so you have to specify a VM. So you create your VNS, they're already there for you. VNS are free, so you don't have to pay for VNS. And then, when it goes to where you tell them where to go. So you just do it in, you have to do it in advance. But it's really pretty simple. You can create one VNet and you can create sub VNets inside, and you can point the machine to any subnet.
So you just create like a replicate VNet of what you have on-prem in Azure, and then so at least it's back online.
Exactly. Yeah. So you'd have a pre-staged VNet there for DR. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. And they tell you do not use your production VNet for testing failover. Like you have to create another VNet, do all the testing on it, and then keep the production VNet for the real failover at the end.
To add a few more points to what you're saying, you got to make sure if you're doing the site recovery thing, your domain controllers are sensitive to the IP changes. So when you go to a different region, it will affect that. The second point I want to make is the VPN portion. So, for instance, in our shop we use FortiGate for our VPN portion, and if we had to do a recovery, it will be impossible for our users to reach that session without having to install the Windows version of VPN.
Sure.
So you have to carefully plan this out before you can rely on that 50%.
Yeah, so I mean, getting the VMs spun up in Azure is one thing, but how do you access them?
Yeah.
Do you use RDP? I mean, so generally we pre-stage like an RDS environment with like a front or a VDI environment, which we could show, which could be an easy use case for a DR, right? So you just have a pre-staged VDI instance or, pre-built where that's how the users interface or get into the environment. Yeah. But it's another good point to mention. Azure Site Recovery doesn't require a VPN, right? It can just go, it goes right over.
Just run over that.
So that's a little bit different than like Zerto or other third-party applications that do require a VPN tunnel to maintain that replication. So that's one of them.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. And, so, like, let's say you have a dedicated VNet for this, for this DR. You can actually run a site-to-site VPN all the time if it's mission critical, or you don't have to do that. You can actually create a site-to-site VPN. You have some kind of disaster. It takes about 40-45 minutes, or you can actually run maybe an express route if you want like the full speed. The express route is basically like running, an Ethernet port from, your data center to Microsoft.
So I know we're running short of time. I think we have about 10 minutes or so left. I mean, we can go over. I just don't know if anyone has to leave. So do you want me to jump into the Windows 10 piece so people can see that? And then we can always come back here. Go ahead.
Yeah, there's only one last thing I want to show. Like you can see that we only see 2 servers out of the 3 servers. So what happens is, let's say you have an Azure Site Recovery, you have a DR, and then you need it to create another server. So what's going to happen? Can you add it? What's going to happen to server number 3? So I want to show you that it's pretty easy those two servers are already there. All you have to do is click on replicate, and then you're going to tell them it's from on-premise to the demo Hyper-V. Hit OK. That's the subscription, resource manager. I'm going to choose the storage account, and then hit OK. And here is server number 3. So I can just check it, hit OK, and then tell it, what is the operating system, it's Windows operating system, what disk you want it to replicate, and hit OK. And that's it, it's done. It takes like, less than a minute to add all the servers. If you added a new server to Azure Site Recovery, it's pretty easy. And here's my replication policy that I created from before, which is every 5 minutes, recovery for retention 2 hours, and
yeah, and that's another good point too, because replication will try to fill up your pipe. So it's something you want to be cognizant of, right? Yeah, so you can throttle it and you can make sure that it doesn't, or it's timed where it only does bulk of the migrations at night, but yeah.
Yeah, I actually noticed that only at the initial, steps, it takes long time, but after that, it only replicates the changes. So yeah, so I'm going to hit OK, enable replication, and within like a couple of minutes, you're going to see server 1, 2, and 3. It's really an awesome thing.
All right, thanks. Let me just go through the test. I'm going to put this slide up really, and then we'll go into that Windows 10.
I was going to say, if funds permitting, if you can do maybe like a layer 2, kind of like express route to your Azure instance on instead of using a site-to-site.
So Jason,
I'm sorry, yeah.
You said funds permitting?
Well, I could imagine it's expensive, but maybe having like a layer 2 connection to Azure, and pretty much instead of doing a site-to-site VPN.
Yeah, so if you had like multiple sites, right? I mean, so if you have like an MPLS network, the easiest way to enable express route, basically you add it as like another MPLS leg on your network, so it meshes with all your sites. You can do a layer 2 connection, but just keep in mind, right, if it's a disaster, and your office is not accessible, say there's a fire, that layer 2 connection is not going to be much help, right? Because you can't use it. And that's where kind of like Windows 10 VDI would come in, or RDS, which has been around forever, right? Front-end RDS server, publish an app, have people log in that way, or have a published desktop that they can log in. Or again, that's really what the use case of Windows VDI, a good use case of Windows VDI in Azure is DR. Yeah. So you pay for what you use, so you only pay for the instances when they're spun up. It's very straightforward to configure. There's a lot of hybrid licensing benefits. So let me go through this really quick. So you can deploy VMs in literally minutes. So you can bring your own image. You can create one of the base images they have. So if you have your own desktop image that you want to upload and bring, that's absolutely supported. There's Windows 10 multi-session, right? So Windows 10 multi-session, I believe Azure is the only thing that supports it today. I don't think there's anything else out there that does that. So and persistent desktop model. So everyone can get their same desktop every time they log in, have their same files, etc., the same profile, or you could have a generic desktop, which is obviously a lot quicker and easier to build and replicate. So one nice thing about it too is it integrates with Office 365, so you get the whole Pro Plus suite from the basic desktop. So when you deploy this, if you just use the base image that's on Azure, you're going to get all those apps pre-installed and they're licensed. So it's a nice feature.
Could you get rid of those?
You can. You can have your own custom image, absolutely. Okay. Yep. And so then the hybrid licensing benefits is where this really comes into play, right? So if you're a M365 E3 or E5 customer, or an A3 or A5, I think if you're on the education side, M365 F1, the licenses for this are included. So you just pay for that cost of the VM, which it can be very, very inexpensive. I mean, you're talking like $10 a month for a user, depending on the size of the machine you use, up to I mean, $80 a month for a user, right? If they need some high-end graphics processing or something like that. So again, if you're using this for DR, just for an example, you're not going to be paying basically for anything except for whatever RDS front end, if you even have that up and running, or whatever storage is on the back end. To compute the big cost of this is only going to be used when you're actually leveraging this. And then you could absolutely spin these up or down. So based on how many users are logging in, you could have a very minimal footprint, and then as that user base expands, you could scale it up, and then as they log out, you could scale it back down. So it's a flexible, elastic solution for VDI. And then included in our CSP support would be 24/7 coverage. Back to Mike's slide on the Diamond support that we offer. It's something that's covered by CSP, so any troubleshooting, tickets, etc., would be leveraged or open through us.
So it's almost help that support that outsource. And their CSP will be for Azure?
Azure CSP, because this runs in Azure, so yeah.
And one of the key differentiating factors of this and our project is if you look at the users, VDI, Verizon, VDI, and VMware, one of the largest problem of VDI desktop is because the non-persistent images of users who log in, right? Those users who log in, you have to have a copy of their mail being downloaded each time they log in, which is then a horrible user experience, which is presenting a great deal of money for more data systems for consulting to work around those issues. But now Microsoft has a solution, and it's promising that there is no issue whatsoever with those large output files that are being downloaded. And those images with a non-persistent image. You could have multiple people log in, but have to be that copy. It will save up a whole ton of information. You could probably think that this is a little scared about right now. But something to really think about, that big issue, might be number one issue, and across the board with Office 365 and VDI. I mean, I have customers who said they went to that VDI and we had customers use the web portal that are asking for Outlook. They had to go back and forth just because of one.
Okay, guys, so we're going to go back. We can actually see the replication is going already up to 8%.
And that's why
we didn't believe you.
So this says only 3%. What do today?
So now we're going to go to the VDI. I just want to mention the Azure backup. We have another vault here that's I'm running a backup from a VM. This actually is within the VM. So I install the Azure backup agent inside the VM, not on the Hyper-V server. So you can actually do an Azure backup for file level and folder level. So and that's how it shows. You can actually, this is the VM. You can see that there are, a period of points all the way from January to May. I know, Azure backup is not like part of the daily demo, but it's a pretty cool product. It works. It's not like you have to deal with Azure backups and errors and stuff like that. So now we're gonna move to the VDI. Okay, so the VDI, I have to talk a little bit about how to be able to deploy a VDI requires domain controller. So you have to be part of the domain. And because we don't have any domain controllers on Azure, I basically created an Azure Active Directory, and then I also added the Azure Active Directory domain service. So I'm running domain services basically as a service. So I don't have to worry about the domain controllers. I don't have to manage them. Microsoft does that for me. I have a full domain running in the background, actually two domain controllers running on the background. And if I needed more domain controllers, Microsoft actually fires more for me if I have like thousands of users, 100,000. This is actually the Azure Active Directory domain services. It's different than the Azure Service Directory. It's also like one of the cool things about Azure. So if you have if you want to deploy virtual desktops, and you don't have to worry about running a domain controller on the cloud, you can go with the domain services, and basically do an AD connect, move all your users to have make them part of the domain service, and you can actually shut the on-premises completely. You don't need anything. There is no domain controller. Everything is done on Azure. So I have to do that. That's the background. So I have the domain services running. Then I go to create a new resource group. You need two different resource groups. You need one resource group for the host, which is the VDI VMs themselves. So the demo resource group is where I have the Active Azure Directory Domain Services, and you can see there are actually two of them because I can see two links here, two network interfaces. We see a load balancer between them, and then I see the public IP. So the other resource group, if we open the host resource group, you can actually see, all of that. But Microsoft creates an availability set for you. You don't have to do that. It's part of building VDI. The first thing that Microsoft is going to do is going to create an availability set. And in this demo, Microsoft asks how many users you have. And I put like maybe 20. So Microsoft decided to throw in two VDIs for me because I said I need 20 users to be able to work, average works. So, there isn't a lot that we can show on the Azure side, but I just want to show you how cool this thing is going to be. There is a client that I downloaded, and this client is called Remote Desktop Client. So for the end user, you don't even need to know what the IP address of basically the virtual server. You don't have to create an RDP. Like for example, if I want to log into my VDI server, I need to know what is the IP address and all that stuff. Over here, all we need to do is we have to log into this remote desktop, and this is basically my Active Directory. It's called Block Azure. So you have to have that downloaded and installed. No, you can actually go to a web interface also. And choose Chrome and yeah.
Like an RDS.
Yeah. So they have a new web interface that the user has to log into it, and they're gonna see the same exact. Or they can just download the remote desktop and everything is there. And from there you can actually see the host port. So from here, all they need to do is double click on it and then enter the password.
So if you had a domain controller in Azure and were using AD Connect, you would just use your regular domain creds, right? So like Hani mentioned, you could hit that published website. You don't have to use this client.
Can you demo that?
Do you have that website?
Yeah, I'm not yet going to check it out. So and I just logged into basically the VDI, and it's a Windows 10. You can actually see I did not do anything. Microsoft already put all the Office applications for me. If I have the proper license, like let's say I have an Office 365, any license that actually allows me to use Office, I can click into the Office. And you can actually see that I'm already logged in. I didn't even do that. It did it for me. So I just need to hit sign in, and it's going to pick up my license and it's going to work. I don't have an Office license, so that's not going to work for me. Also, you have to just log into your Outlook only the first time, and then it's going to remember it. That's it. You don't have to wait. This is actually running in the background. So when the user logs in, they don't have to wait for the Outlook spot relay. It's there for them. It's there to really awesome. You can also publish apps here. You can use the Windows 7 image or Windows 10 image. I'm using actually the Windows 10 multi-session image from Microsoft. So multiple users can log into the Windows 10. So you can actually install your apps here. And I think it's the only way to actually have a multiple users log into Windows 10 at this moment. I don't think anyone else is offering it. So it's pretty cool, if you don't want to deal with, just to remind you guys, before we have to deal with this. So you need You need an RD web access, you need an RD gateway, you need an SSL certificate, you need a firewall, you need an RD connection broker, and then the RD sessions, and you have to take care of the RD license servers. All these done. Like that's how cool this VDI is. You don't have to worry about all these, especially the SSL certificates. It's, like after 1 year, everything is down because somebody has to update. So Microsoft is running all these for you in the background. On top of that, they're offering Windows 10 multi-session, and all you need to do is basically have the proper license. That's it. So when the user has a proper license, they log in there, and all the information is there, and it follows them anyway. And if these the first VDI gets busy, then users are going to be directed to log into the other VMs, and you don't even have to do that. So the load balancing is done by Microsoft. And if the two servers are getting consumed, then Microsoft is going to throw in another one for you. You don't have all to give. So these things are just going to keep growing.
Just as a checkpoint, it is a little past 1:30. We don't have to, we don't have to leave the room, but just letting you guys know, we can trickle on for a little bit as you have stuff to show.
Quick question. How would this activate with people with on-premise stuff? Like we have some on-premise programs that would be in this VDI. How would that connect?
Yeah. So I mean, you could use a published app, right? So you could have an RDS gateway and server on premise. You could publish the app, put the icon on the desktop. Software-defined WAN. Right. So you have to kind of VPN or connectivity, right? That bridges Azure with your offices, and then you would access the app stack.
Okay.
Thanks.
I have a question. For an office scenario, how would this benefit me if I still have to supply desktops, physical desktops to users, and have them remote in? I feel like I'm doing two measurements.
So remember, it's a terminal server, so this is not for people inside the office.
We have both, so external and internal, but how? So I guess I won't benefit from.
Well, so VDI in general, you need a means to connect to.
Yeah.
Right. So you can't have no machine. Right. So where you save the money or save the management, I should say, is the persistent or the repeatable desktop. So that desktop image you create that can be easily deployed and broken down, but accessing it you can use within terminal. Right. So there's going to be thin clients coming out that just runs that RDS client that you saw.
Yeah.
And that's all it's going to have. So. I mean, a thin client can cost a couple $100 to. I mean, it can cost a lot of money if you wanted to.
Like an iPad, yeah.
The cost savings also on the security layer, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So that's the largest one. I spent a lot of time to recall, the Microsoft and the full workspace. Talk about 1,000 years, all workspaces. It's usually the normal desktops, right? But the desktops. So now the stuff do or what they can do.
Yeah. Yeah. So the second use case is security. Right now, you're just getting images of that data, so it's a lot harder to take that data, just map a drive to it, and steal it. Right. Yeah. So there's all these different controls and security procedures you can impose. So there's you can't get rid of that device. You still need something, but a thin client is way more less makes sense than the desktop. So you can still save money on desktop refreshes to that, right?
You also incorporate it with Windows Hello.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, so it's still in preview, so we don't know the full capabilities yet.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming, Windows Hello and all that.
It is public preview, so
yeah. You could play with it and deploy it, or we could help you.
Not in production, I think Fred, we wouldn't recommend you put it in production, but you could play with it in a test bit.
And the last thing, security aspect, right, is build out images for different users or admin users versus finance users versus frontline versus the tellers that have pay-per-view, the tellers, the investment traders, it's several images across the board. Now, if there were additional upgrades that the investment done upgrade that way, talking about a project 18 to 22 months, right? Yeah. Updating across the board. This potentially be done in a matter of
rolling that out and that.
Yeah, I mean, like, this is pretty fast, man. It doesn't even need to, like, if you have an ISO that's ready, that you have all your applications, you can deploy your own ISO, and you can deploy your custom still. So you don't have to go with that. You're gonna lose the multi-station, the Windows 10 multi-station.
That part.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking more from the licensing perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. And like, you know, if you have any remote users, it's hard. I worked for MSP for a long time, and you know, the number one ticket that, you know, you cannot access the camera service. It's like, you know, like all the time, every day, you know, there is like a firewall issue. There's like, you know, SSL is gone. You know, the gateway is like blocking my IP. There's so many things, like, you know.
Can we incorporate this in like an Okta for, because we use Okta for single sign-on.
Yeah.
I'm wondering if I can add that as an app, and then the people can just click into a remote session via computer.
You should be able to.
That just came out.
Actually, these are not, like, let me go to the Azure Active Directory. If I go there, and I go to the apps, actually, you can actually see that the Windows terminal. So this server is fine. Basically, it's enough.
And play with this. Okay.
The web interface looks like, let's say, for example, if I have users at home and doesn't have a company issue device, and I want them to be able to access the environment.
Yeah,
and just tell them to go to a web browser.
Yeah, there is actually, I think it's this one, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, you see.
This is live demo.
Yeah, pretty much.
In fact, Microsoft Live Demo might not work.
All right.
I'm trying to find the webinar finish.
I like it.
I actually have to look into it because
We'll get back to you.
yeah, it's like I saw it. Like, you know, you can actually go to a web address and just like, you know, you have to log in there and you're gonna see. I think it's part of my apps. Let me go to my apps. My apps at Microsoft.com. Because it's an app, it should show there.
Yeah, because I'm thinking for...
Yeah, you see, it actually shows there. Yeah, so all you have to do is just click it, and that's going to take you to...
That's live right now.
Yeah, this is preview. So, but like it should be like one of the apps. So all the user has to do is just like log in from here.
Yeah, because like I have sales stores across the country, and we have
users
there that, you know, have iPads.
Yeah.
I'm envisioning these frontline workers having these iPads there. You know, they're using Teams to check their schedule.
Yeah, I think I'm looking at the wrong user. So let me look
to access whatever resources they need to present to customers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, things of that nature.
Yeah, it says there's support for HTML5, so it should work in any web browser. And I know that it's supposed to work, but again, it's improved. So maybe
log in as so you so the virtual desktop.
What's the minimum license requirement to
just
access the Windows?
The minimum license requirement.
To get the virtual desktop? Like, is it part of?
So it's part of M365E3. So not O365E3, but M365. It's part of it. So you have to access.
What helps is just having the Windows license be included in all of that, and the Windows CAL.
Yeah, exactly. If you have that, then yeah.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yep. Drinking the Microsoft Blade.
It is. I mean, it's very promising, but available right now is still in preview, right? Especially if you already own the license, and this could be a very inexpensive way, again, for DR, even for just desktop ownership.
Yeah. So since we're talking about you know, Windows 10 and, you know, Windows 10, and yeah, I just want to show you something also pretty cool. So on this server 2019, I downloaded and installed. I basically set up what they call it the Windows Admin Center. Familiar with it?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. So,
Super awesome.
yeah. Let me see if I can bring it up here.
The only
It's a new way they want you to manage the 2019 Azure cloud and stuff like that, so.
Yeah, if it's like 2012, I think you need to install somewhere.
Yeah. But
While you pull this up, I think you guys have what's called desktop support based with Microsoft, have availability of software assurance benefit. All of this is pre-can be deployed for pilot, capable for your organization. So if you guys are engagement where they'll put 5-10 users, put that together, and you don't have to pay for it, but it's as a 10 days. You don't know what to use our that's just fine.
And so it comes with the Windows 2019 server. You can just link your Windows Admin Center.
Excuse me. And within Windows Admin Center, you can test and do your site recovery.
Yeah, you can do all of that. Within. Okay. So yeah, you have all these like Azure hybrid services available on one server. So if you want to do a backup, you just click on backup, and then set up an Azure backup. All you have to do is just go into your Azure service. Yeah. Azure backup from any file.
Oh, I was going to say, yeah, so what's really cool is you could actually add a NIC in Azure to an on-premise server. I don't know if you showed that.
Yeah, I'm
but
sure that.
You can just click add and bind that VM to a virtual network. No VPN required, no nothing. You can actually put a NIC on that server on a VNet that exists in Azure.
Yeah, you can actually link your network to a VNet on Azure without going through all these hoops.
So you get rid of, you don't need the site-to-site.
Yeah, you need that hybrid networking in place, yeah. I mean, it doesn't help the users. It's good for the Windows 2019 servers.
Yeah.
Does it increase efficiency between the two sites or any benefit outside of the simplicity?
Yeah, I'm guessing if there's like a specific app and you didn't want to build a VPN for whatever reason, if there's like 1 or 2 servers that need it, it would be a nice use case.
I'm sorry guys, it's really small. But if you click on network, one of the options, which is really pretty cool, is to add an Azure network adapter. It's also in preview, but I think it's going to come soon. So once you click that, using Azure, I'll show you. This is my subscription. Location. I don't have no virtual network in Australia. If I click on it's actually this is my VDI network, and all you need to do is hit create. Literally, it takes like 10 seconds, like instead of 45 minutes. So you create the network, and then now you just link your network to a VNet tonight. There is like also the Azure site recovery here. There is like you can actually add like more views. Like let's say you have another network, you can add them, and you can actually remote into them from here. Like you can click on remote desktop. You can actually remote to all your Azure servers from here. So it is really an admin center. Yes, instead of going all these
disparate
apps. Like amazing. Like they can actually get the net. Particularly survey. But you got the idea. You can actually manage your whole. You can see the local users and groups.
And the beautiful piece is that it's within a web browser.
Yeah, I just want to show you that if you go back on Azure here, let me just. If you go back to Azure, what is doing this admin center is if you go to the application, because you don't know how Microsoft is connecting all these together. It's actually, they consider it an app. So if you go to the app registration, you can actually see that the admin center. So it's just an app.
I know we're over on time, but I just want to make sure that any stuff that are asked, many questions online that people have, I just want to make sure that we're good at that. I know there's a survey that must be filled out and everyone's got. Do you notice that you have ECS here to affect some of the for highlight?
And also, you know, I know we probably, based on what I know historically, you know, we probably have to be eligible, but I'd have to confirm.
I don't think we are.
I could explore it. I can't guarantee it, but we can explore it.
Because we don't do software assurance.
That's okay. He's talking about DPS, but there are other mechanisms as well. So we don't control the funding mechanisms, but basically we have access to the programs that Microsoft makes available. So
Microsoft really wants you guys to do this, right? You guys are aware of it.
Yes.
And I really do stuff. If we start anything to change with piloting it or testing it, it might be a little generous or the representative ever to help. I really want to do this wrong. I think container solely focused for such long period of time. And every day, you're not enough OS. They want to see what they're doing.
Oh, do they have Linux clients and stuff in this?
I'm sure Satya has Linux clients, where he's going to have every single client that is technically available. So that's what his vision is like. I'm just a guy who don't believe anything else.
well, with that said, I just want to say thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time and attention and for stopping by. Any questions? We're going to be here. And it doesn't have to end here if you want to chat.
Yes, and I'll take your survey.
Yeah.
It'll work. Except for the web.
That's what I use.
Yeah. No, it's always good.
Yeah, but it crashes out.
So pretty much
I just I think manage everything to the web. Yeah. So I want to make sure. And then you can spin up this. The manage itself. That means itself. You use the dedicated. You can use a dedicated server, or you can if you have one. Lower resource just
and Azure
around. Okay. And I don't have any 2019 server. Okay.
Okay, so you're good. Oh, you're good. Yeah, you're.
I really do.
Yeah, I think you get your New York card in here, so you're good.
Very much loaded.
And if anyone wants to get collateral in the back, I'm not. My number said he's on
I think it's net here because my phone doesn't get in my email. Just like
yeah. Yeah, and I've heard like they're innovative.
yeah, no, I had a shot to like turn off my Wi-Fi to get check it out. So do you have configuration? No. So just build the server, and then register. So it's in preview. So everything that if you want to contextualize, you can just send VDI. It's in preview now. Don't talk to now. We're expecting to jump to is it November? Yeah, maybe November. Because Microsoft is pushing. Yeah. Actually, one of the most exciting things Microsoft is doing. Yeah.
Oh, really? But what that just did was like, there's like $1,000 root free stuff. Yeah. It's like $3,000 now. So inadvertently, it costs a lot of money. I'm very willing to
And again. I don't want to get interested, and now it's going to December. August.
Yeah, Microsoft really
Or I could talk to my manager and say, I have another solution that's not available in September.
Yeah, this is definitely.
What? No, it's like something personal.
Make sure you put up.
One that's more targeted for you.
I'm trying to get you that, the webinar.
That was, yeah. Yeah, it was something that we had to work to get it all.
We've seen browser
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's, I know that there was a struggle to be able to get that.
So those can.
But I don't really.
I have line 65.
Yeah, that would be more questions for him. He's super excited.
Yeah, sure.
He spends his night working on it. Yeah.
I don't know.
Mike's on the phone. Is your Wi-Fi?
Yeah. Yeah. So this is the webinar page. It's RDWeb.
Yeah, and that's what he's keen for, so.
I don't know if it's gonna work. Yeah.
Okay.
Did you speed up all the licenses? I don't know if
Yeah, I mean, he mentioned he wouldn't mind seeing, like the VDI ones, Microsoft ones, have like another event to actually.
Yeah, so he would,
Okay, see what something for.
this guy, he said he wanted more of it, he wanted more of it, but maybe we could do one that's more targeted specifically to that kind of audience. So then you could do a lot more.
Yep, and then I'm, and then you're gonna make my wife marry me, and I'm no longer getting.
But then,
You're using that.
I gotta get revenge, Chrome.
I know, dude. It's tough, man.
Wisdom.
Michael Randy.
Keith? Yeah, he knows the pricing. Honey, are we gonna start aside?
Yeah, that's a question I had as well. We asked Jason, but I will be sending the webinar around to technical, and I'll send all of the handouts. You'll get them.
Oh, yeah. No, it was great. You know,
I see. Good work.
You need to know, like, how to see IP address. It's really crazy, yeah. It's really nice.
You click on that, you're gonna get the desktop.
Sam?
Oh, would there be a way to prevent that? Forward in.
I love that.
Okay.
Those things moving the clipboard and stuff automatically.
Are we still recording?
But I can